Hello, farmers, and welcome to another episode of the Harvest Season. My name is Al,
I'm Kevin.
and we are here today to talk about farming games.
Woo.
Woo! Gotta farm all your games.
What? Yeah. Yeah, that's what we do. We don't, we farm games. We don't do actual farming.
So, welcome. Hi, Kevin. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you, Al?
Yeah, I'm doing not too bad. Not too bad. I mean, I'm hot and sweaty and uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
I'm tired.
I mean,
But
those are my
other than
default.
that, other than that, I'm good. Yeah, but Kevin, I live in Scotland, right? We don't cope well with heat. In many aspects. So
Yeah.
I'm dying.
Good.
I'm
Good.
I'm dying. Actual
Podcast
dying.
exclusive. Al's death.
Well, if I
Someone
die
dies
on
at
the
the end of this
recording,
episode.
it's not like the recording will end up actually airing because I will be dead. So if you can hear this, I'm not dead,
Or he
or at
passed
least
editing
I wasn't
instructions to
dead.
someone.
Couple things. First of all, this is as mentioned before. There's like a chunk of time in the summer where I go away, and so we pre-record a bunch. This is the last of the episodes that isn't pre-recorded. So there will be some news in this one, but it's the last news you'll get for at least a month, possibly longer than that. We've not decided exactly
Which
when
means
the news
all
will
the
start
good
again.
news is coming right after this.
Yeah. So sorry. Yeah.
Get excited. Stardew 2 coming next week.
Oh man, that would be interesting. Yeah. So we'll have to deal with that. But we've got news in this episode, so woo.
Yeah.
This episode we're gonna have a little bit of a different discussion. We are gonna chat about accessibility in farming. So we are gonna solve accessibility. Woo!
Yep. Us
We're
too.
not. We're definitely not.
Able-bodied folk.
I wanted to have a chat about it. And so we'll see how that goes. Before that though, we will obviously have a bunch of news, as I mentioned. But first of all, Kevin, what have you been playing?
All right. I have actually been playing somewhat farming related, cottage core related, whatever you want to call it. I've been playing Let's Build a Zoo again. They had the dinosaur DLC drop.
Dinos.
And it got me back on board.
Dangerous.
That game is still good. Let's Build a Zoo. Go back, listen to our episode about it. It's still valid. And then they did some quality of life stuff that I appreciated, stuff to make it a little easier to manage some of the UI stuff and actually building your zoo a little nicer. So that's good fun, and the dinosaurs are dinosaurs. You get Jurassic Park themed park that you're making, and it's you like dinos, go play it. It's pretty much what it is on the box.
What's
So
your
yeah,
weirdest crossbreed you've had with a dino?
I'm still not a big crossbreeder. I haven't done dino crossbreedings. I know now that I'm thinking about it though. Oh no, but that's
fail.
You know what they do though? They hold off all the good dinosaurs till the end. I still don't have a T-Rex or a Triceratops. Yes, they make you wait.
Can you do a T-Rex and Triceratops crossbreed? Because
I'm sure you can.
Is very funny.
I'm sure. Would you? Okay, what's the head? Is it the Rex or the Triceratops?
Well, it would depend which order you put them in. That's how that.
I know. Which one do you want?
T-Rex head.
T-Rex head. Well, that's just a four-legged T-Rex. I like the Triceratops head with the T-Rex body. I guess
it's not just a four-legged T-Rex, which does quite change the thing.
Triceratops doesn't have spikes; just has the horns.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different animal.
Well, Stegosaurus. That might be a better.
That's
one.
Look, the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, look, but
I'm
before
good with my dinosaurs.
before I was a Pokemon fan, I was a dinosaur fan, right? Like that filled the void. Pokemon was pretty much
Well,
1-to-1 from
I am sorry,
dinosaurs.
Kevin. And I also apologize to Spencer if you're listening.
But yeah, anyway, so that's a great game. Go play it. Let's build this. It's also on Switch now. It got announced. It's coming out
Hey,
soon.
hey, 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 are
What?
you
Is
jumping
that
in
on?
on the news? Come
That's not
on.
on your news.
So it's not. Why is it not on my news? Have we already talked about it?
Well, okay, we'll maybe get to that. Play Let's Build a Zoo. It's good. Aside from that, I've been playing Fire Emblem Three Houses. I like Fire Emblem games. It's super chess. If you've never played a Fire Emblem game, there's squares. You move people. They do things and fight. It's a good game. It's a good Fire Emblem game. As a small little rant, they've kind of shifted gears. They've done an element of social dating sim sort of stuff between your little units. And I get why it's popular and people like it, but I mean, it's not bad, but they're definitely putting a lot more energy into that than they are in the, you know, instead of putting that energy more into the gameplay, which is fine.
Hmm.
But I don't know. When I started that series, it was a lot more straightforward. Like, there's the bad army, we're the good army. Let's go fight a war with them. And I missed that a little, but it's not bad. Three Houses is a good game. Go play it. I could go on about it, but it's a good game overall. Um, and aside from that, another blast from the past. Dragon Quest Builders 2. Some people and friends have been playing it, so they got me back in. That game is still really good. Did you ever finish that, Al?
No.
You should, because that game, like, it's real. There's a lot at the end. That last act is really good. Um, People go play it. If not, there's a demo. You can play a demo that can be like infinity hours. It's a really really big demo. Um,
Yeah.
because it's just up to a point, and you can do whatever you want up to that point in the story. Um, it's Minecraft, but with everything Minecraft, the problems it has fixed. So, and it's Dragon Quest, so it's cute and funny. Go play it. And that's pretty much all I've been doing. What about you, Al?
Cool.
What have you been playing?
I have been playing Portal and Portal 2 on the
I'm
Switch.
jealous. I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I'll get to
It's
that
good
soon.
fun. It's a really good port. I have been enjoying it.
Have you played the
And
Portals previously?
yeah, I played them on PlayStation, I want to say. Like quite a long time ago.
Mm,
But yeah, no, I enjoyed them first time around, and I enjoy them second time around. I think it's been long enough that I can't remember exactly how to solve them all.
right.
Other than obviously the like final levels of both of them. Um, because they're just like obviously so distinctive.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, they're just as funny, I think, the second time round, which is good.
I'm
Um,
yeah, I haven't played them, but I know they're good and they're quite up my alley, so I want to get to them eventually.
Yeah, and they're really good ports. They run in 60 frames per second in
Oh.
720 on handheld and 1080 and docked, which is really good.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
I
really
know,
good.
right?
Well, Jesus. How
And
it joins a list of like what, 5 Switch games that can do that.
and I think they're like $20 or £15,
Yeah, for
which is
both
pretty
or
good for two games.
oh, okay, yeah. All right, sounds good. I'll get to that one day. Very nice. Glad to hear they're good
Um,
ports.
yeah, no, they're really good. There's like one really annoying issue on Portal 2 where if you like put your put your console into sleep mode, it'll uh start causing like it'll start when you restart the
Mhm.
Switch, it'll have like, oh, I can't connect to the internet every few minutes, but
Uh,
you save and exit and reopen it, and it stops doing that. So that's a really annoying bug, but I'm
oh,
sure they'll
that's
fix
rough.
that soon.
Hopefully.
But that's about the only
Things
issue
must
I've
work soon.
found with them.
Okay. But good. Glad to hear they're good.
And I've also been playing the Mario Rabbids DLC. So I never got around to that the first time because it came out after I played the game the
Yeah.
first time, and I sold the game. But then the game was on what's it called? Nintendo Switch Online game trial,
Huh.
and they were selling the DLC for like £3. So I was like,
Ooh,
£3. I will
that's
buy the
smart.
DLC and I will play the DLC while you can play the game for free. So
That's smart.
um,
And it's yeah, you could do that too. That's within. That's a realistic
Yeah.
goal.
So it was good
Donkey Kong
fun.
Island.
Fun to have the extra different, the different mechanics with Donkey Kong and stuff like that. It was good fun.
Yeah. Rabbit Cranky. That was a good pick. I like his little
And yeah,
sweater vest.
yeah, very funny, very funny. Yeah, that's what we've been playing.
Rabbits. Yep.
Rabbids. Speaking of rabbids, sorry. Speaking of news, well, it's not really.
Speaking of
Should we talk about
rabbits.
some news? I mean, there was rabbids news, but it's not like we're going
There,
to talk about that. I don't think you can call that a farming game.
no, the rabbits. Farm rabbits.
No, no. We have a bunch of news. First of all, we've got some news about Disney Dreamlight Valley. So this is a farming game, sim type game where you play in a place with all like Disney characters and stuff. And still not sure whether you can like get in relationships with them, which I really hope you can.
What?
Come
Are
on.
you? Are you?
You telling me you don't want to be in a relationship with Wall-E?
I was about to say Wally. Are you gonna romance Wally? No. Gosh darn it! Now I want to. Yeah. I hope you
really want it.
farm.
I really hope they do, but I guess
don't.
we'll just have to see.
I'm still confused by this game because it's free to play, right? And gonna be on mobile.
So, yeah. So it's an interesting game. It is, I believe it is free to play. What I find really interesting, and this is kind of, I still feel like people aren't talking about this enough. They announced that this is coming to early access on Switch. Now,
That's weird.
there isn't you're not. It's not that you're not allowed to release early access games on Switch, but there is no like official early access thing.
Mhm.
And this isn't just the Disney saying, "Oh, we're going to release it in early access." This is like Nintendo specifically saying this is coming to early access on the 6th of September.
Mhm.
And this makes me wonder: are they releasing an official early access feature? Because why would they say it's coming to early access if that doesn't exist?
I mean, they could do it because Disney wanted it to. Like,
I don't know why they would say.
Nintendo holds a lot of sway, but Disney probably
Yeah.
holds a bit more. They
Yeah,
could probably make an exception for Disney.
I'm intrigued. It's the fact that Nintendo are specifically using the phrase early access. It's not like if Disney had said it, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have batted an eyelid. But it's the fact that Nintendo are saying this.
Well,
And so I'm intrigued. And like nobody really seems to be talking about it. They're just saying, oh yeah, it's coming to early access. It doesn't
Well-
exist. There's no such thing.
well, if there's one company that will do a feature for one time in the entire console life cycle, it's Nintendo.
I really want to know, and like nobody seems to be. Whenever I Google it, it's just people going, "Oh, Disney Dreamlight coming to early access on Switch." Nobody pointing out the fact that that's not a thing.
Well, what about Animal Crossing? That was in early access for a year.
Look, if they had said early access, maybe they could have changed things. No, I'm really fascinated to see what happens, and I don't understand why nobody is questioning this. And hey, Nintendo, are you officially releasing an early access feature? Please do. That'd be great. Are you going to give like less stringent oversight for those games so that indies can get their games out quicker on the Switch? And like, the key thing about early access is making visibility and going to like, hey, this is not a finished game. There might be more issues with it than normal games. Blah 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 blah. That's
I mean, the thing
indies
is,
want this sort of stuff.
They've done early access. They just don't call it early access. They had the
like what?
Splatoon. Splatoon had a Splatfest before it came out. Daemon
that was a
X
demo.
Machina.
That's not the same thing. It was specifically marketed as a demo.
They call it a global test fire. That's what they called it.
Yeah, it was a demo. It was a demo wrapped up in we need to test our servers. Come on.
Okay.
Come on.
Let's go rewind back to the early access episode, and I don't know. Whatever. I'm not expecting it to be a thing. Like I said, I just can see Disney being big enough to bully Nintendo into doing it for them, but I don't expect anything more than that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like they'd already announced that it was coming to the Switch. What are they going to do? Say it's not coming to the Switch anymore? They're not
I
going to
mean,
do that.
it'll come to the Switch. Just I don't think any other game will ever get early access.
No, I
With
mean,
it,
if Nintendo hadn't
oh,
used the phrase early access, what were they going
oh.
to do? They weren't going to say, "Oh, well, we're not going to put it on your console anymore."
They
Come
would
on.
absolutely do that.
No,
Disney will kill
no,
something in a second if it doesn't go their
no,
way.
no. They wouldn't have done that.
Oh, yes, they would have. They
Nah.
they killed their entire video game sector because they wasn't making enough money.
Yeah, but did that kill games they'd already announced were coming?
It's a little
It's a
bit.
big difference. There's
Disney
a big
Infinity
difference.
Disney Infinity died halfway
Well, yeah, but
through.
they still released it. It was still a thing that they released that people could get and
Yeah.
use. Like if you
Okay.
announce a game and say this is coming out, and then go, "Oh, never mind, we're annoyed
Okay.
with
Well,
Nintendo because
okay.
they won't
I'm
let us
sure
use a phrase."
I'm sure the early access thing was decided before the first announcement. Like I'm sure they were already in talks about that.
Nah, no, nobody thinks that long and that far in advance.
I don't know. I think if any two companies were to discuss, it'd be Disney and Nintendo. Look,
I'm not convinced.
mm,
But anyway, we could argue about this all the time. We will see what happens once their game comes out to early access in September. If we see anyone else doing it, then we know it's a thing. Speaking of things, Worth Life is
that's a thing.
finally being localized. So this was a game that was released in Japan last year. It is now coming to not Japan.
Yeah.
In fact, it'll be coming out tomorrow after the day this episode comes out. So yeah, it's a fun little RPG game. Kind of almost looks it's kind of cutesy art style 2D side scrolling
They advertise
RPG
it
with
straight out of a pop-up book or picture book, something like that.
yeah. But there's farming in it as well. You kind of have your little plot where you can farm
Yes.
and presumably get a bunch of stuff from it to help you progress the game. There's fishing and you build houses and stuff like that.
Yes. It's important to note it's all 2D, which is a little weird, but
Mhm.
okay. It's 2D side scrolling type thing.
I like it.
It's at the very least I will say the art style is very cute and nice and pretty to
Mm.
look at. So look at the trailer and look at that.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it. My biggest question is how did they avoid getting sued by Animal Crossing for stealing their Animal talking sounds? If you listen to characters, they just sound just like an Animal Crossing character.
Yeah. I mean, I think it
That's
was quite. I think they have a relationship with Nintendo. This
I
company,
don't know
but
who is making. I don't know who it is.
Good question.
I just see Worth Life. Worth.
It's a dreadful name because it's really hard to
Oh,
to search.
yeah. Well, I don't know. Oh,
Hakama.
oh, okay. Well, I don't know, but that's just me heckling them. The game looks cute. I probably won't play it, to be honest. The 2D thing looks a little weird. But I could be wrong. Maybe it's fantastic. And it already came out in Japan, so there's impressions out there probably, maybe. We'll see.
It looks like Hakama are a subsidiary of Marvelous.
Okay.
So yeah, they have a pretty long relationship with Nintendo.
Okay, that makes sense then.
So
That could get
in fact, Hakama developed Rune Factory 5 and Rune Factory 4 Special.
Oh, well, there you go. So it's probably in pretty good then, because that's a good name, good pedigree. Hopefully, looks pretty. Will Worth Life be worth it? Just I don't know. There's gonna be 100 reviews with that bad pun.
It looks like Hakama started out as a bunch of former developers from Neverland, who did some. They did Rune Factory, the original 3 Rune Factories.
Oh, well, okay. I mean, it looks good. I'm just really confused by the side-scrolling thing. Like, I don't know. It's just this is a very me thing. I know.
I mean, I mean, maybe this is just the theme of this episode: is me liking 2D games and you liking 3D games.
I guess so. I don't
I
dislike 2D. Just I don't
well,
like. How do you
just
make
like I don't dislike 3D.
Yeah, but how do you do a farming game in 2D? I mean, I can see how they're doing it, but it's I don't know. Okay. Ah.
I'm excited. I like different things. I think this is different. I was excited about this as soon as I saw it, and I kind of accepted that I may never be able to play it. And I had decided not to buy the Japanese version, and I'm glad I didn't because now we get to play it in a language I can actually
Yay.
understand.
Yay. All right.
Autonauts versus Pirate Bots. We have a release date for this. So this is the new game from the developers of Autonauts. Funnily enough, the Scottish development company Denki Games. This is a sequel to Autonauts, and it's coming out on the 28th of July.
It's very I mean, it's Audionauts, I vaguely remember that, but I think it's just the art style of Audionauts, if I'm correct. It's cubey little
Yeah,
people.
it's the same art style, but it's also like this game started off as a DLC for the first game.
Oh, really? Huh. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. So when they got the
And then
Silk
they,
Song
they they kept
treatment.
making it bigger and bigger and decided it was its own game.
All right, makes sense. Is it tower defense? Because that's what the trailer seems to imply.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the additional gameplay in this compared to the original.
Okay.
So the original was kind of like your kind of automate. Well, obviously, as the name sounds,
Yes.
kind of automation.
Yes.
What a game where you build up your production lines to create stuff, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it looks like they're kind of adding in some tower defense to that as well. But you still have to do the automation lines and stuff like that to build your weapons and blah blah blah.
All right. Yeah, but that's check it out. It looks fun. I might play. I do like a good tower defense game. And it's charming enough. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Speaking of charming games,
Ah,
Apico
there
is
you
now
go.
on Switch.
Orpico. Have you heard of this game, Al?
I have. I've heard it's a fun game. Oh, I should have had a pun there. I've heard it be a fun game because I'm speaking like a pirate from the previous one, and then I also get the bee pun in as well.
I don't
What do you
I don't
think?
know I don't know what for, but I can feel Cody getting angry at us for not celebrating enough or something. Look,
Bees.
there you like bees? You should, or else Cody will find you and play
Anyway, it's
Apico.
out on Switch. Go buy it if
Yes.
you were waiting for it on Switch.
Now you can hold your bees in your hands.
I will probably buy this on Switch and then probably not actually play it on Switch because this sort of game I think works best on PC. But what can I say? I'm a sucker.
And contractually obliged by Cody. Supported.
Anyway, that's out now. Lens Island. So I am very confused by this. And I tried to tell. Right, let's just mention what the news is before I talk about why I'm confused. So
A
there was a
tweet.
tweet from Lens Island that said, "We're working to expand Lens Island into a truly open world game. We'll share more info soon, though it's going to grow the size of the game a whole lot with infinite possibilities. For now, here's a peek of some foliage that will populate the new expanded world." So, I haven't played this game yet because I was planning on it. So I backed it on Kickstarter, but I'm always debating about um, whether to play in early access, and I haven't done it for this game yet. But what I'm confused is I'm wondering whether I misunderstood what the game was before, or whether there is a miscommunication or misunderstanding of what open world means. Because I thought the game already was open world. So I thought it was just a map that you could go anywhere on it. But I'm not sure about that because obviously neither of us have played the game. So I'm wondering whether they're actually reading what I can find about it. What I think they're saying is that it's now just a bigger world with more in it, maybe,
They're focusing on the world part.
rather
It's
than
more
the
like
open
an
part.
yep, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they mean they're adding that shot of over the cliff and the vista that every open world game does now, mimicking Breath of the Wild. That's how you become a true open world game now.
Yeah, I'm just confused as to what they're actually saying changes. Like, obviously, it is a bigger world. That is a clear
Sure.
thing
Mhm.
that they're saying. It's bigger. Map is bigger, and they're claiming that they don't like standard procedural generation, so they're making better procedural generation. I mean, I don't think we can comment on that until we've actually played the game. There are
Yeah,
obviously issues
okay.
with procedural generation. I understand that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I can't see anything that's actually that they're detailing, and it's probably hard to know when you've not even played the game. But yeah, I I think it. I don't know what you think, but I think this is just like a miscommunication as to what the phrase "open world" actually means.
I mean, yeah. I don't I could agree with that, but I don't think it's like them specifically. I think it's just the industry that's muddy that word to nonsense. So
Hmm.
it's whatever. It's a buzzword that they're just slapping on there. Um,
Hmm.
s- Truly open world. It sounds like something you tell your investors.
Yeah,
Uh,
but this is the thing, right? Like I don't think there are areas of the world that you can't go into in this
yeah,
game at the
no, I
beginning, like
doesn't.
which is but as you know, I'm sure we've discussed this plenty of times on this podcast. Like I hate the phrase because nobody can agree on what the phrase means.
Will Pokemon Scarlet and Violet be truly open world?
Well, this is the thing. Like, I'm like, just what does it even mean? And like, people were arguing about whether or not Legends was open world, and it depends on which definition of open world you mean and why, whether it actually matters or not.
You know, this would be a great topic for a full episode. We
Would
just
it,
go
or would I just get
down.
really annoyed?
I know, that's why it'd be a great topic. Go down to the bottom of the barrel on that one. And speaking of things that are actually not at the bottom of the barrel, it's actually quite
Garden
good.
Story. Garden Story's out now on Game Pass, or it will be once the podcast comes out.
I
So if
forget.
you wanted to play this game and you haven't played it yet, and you're a Game Pass player, you can go get it.
Go play as a little grape. A very, very cute grape.
It's a good game.
I still haven't played it, but that grape is still one of the cutest characters of the last X number of years. It's a very
Yeah.
relaxing game, according to Destructoid. That's what the trailer just told me.
Well, I can also back up that this is a good, fun game, enjoyable. We did an episode on it. Who was it? Was it me and Micah?
Maybe I don't.
I think it was me and Micah. So I'll link that in the show notes as well if you want to go listen to that before you play it. But you should play it, especially if
Yes,
you've got Game Pass, because it's free for you.
that's always a good selling point. You know what else? Well, actually, no, this is not free. But
Let's build a zoo.
it's not free in any sense
I
whatsoever.
I didn't just add this into the show notes 20 minutes ago.
I've heard
uh,
of this game.
as we mentioned earlier, it's coming to the Switch and I think basically every console in September.
That's good.
Yep.
I'm curious how the controls will be. For
Yep.
people who don't know, it's out on Steam and it's a very PCE game, very
Yep.
mouse movie clicky, and it'd
It's
be
like
nice.
all these management games, right? Like
Yeah. And the
we'll see how that
question
goes.
is are they, gonna put effort and, assign buttons to do stuff, or are you just gonna control the mouse and just the port over? The 99% of the time, the answer is just port it over and control your dang mouse on your Switch.
Yeah.
But
And
you never know.
when it is turning in the controls, they tend to be bad.
Yeah. But this game
Yeah, we'll see
is
what happens.
it's relatively simple. Hopefully it's a good game. I mean, even if it is just a straight port, it's a great game and there's a lot of people who will play it and that's good because that game's.
Yeah.
And speaking of fantastic games on the Switch, Storyman, Story of Seasons was this fantastic game I hear.
Yes. So this came completely out of the blue during the Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase, which is a dreadful name.
Oh yeah, it is.
They announced Doraemon Story of Seasons Friends of the Great Kingdom, which is a new Doraemon Story of Seasons game. So yeah, we did an episode on this. Oh, what about a year ago? Was it last year sometime? Or was it 2 years ago? I
Might
don't
have
know.
been
I
2
lose
years.
track. Maybe it was 2 years ago. My
Yeah.
word. Time. What is it? In fact, Doraemon Story of Seasons, I think, was this podcast's game of the year, farming game of the year in 2020. No,
20,
20, 21.
22X. 22X.
20 something? It wasn't 2020 because that was Animal Crossing.
Probably started
Was it
with a 20.
2019?
20XX.
Was it 2019?
It was 20XX. I don't know. When did Doraemon come out? Let's
I think it was 2019.
see. State. It was 2019, June 13th, 2019. Oh, that was absolutely your 2019 game of the year.
It was, yeah. So Doraemon Studio Seasons, the original, was our game of the year, 2019, which I think was our first year doing the podcast. So it was our very first game of the year.
Dang. Well, there you go. It's getting a sequel. And I think, not just you, I think
Yes,
the
sorry.
whole
Yeah,
world.
the actual news. Yes, the actual news is there's a new game.
I don't think anyone expected that. I don't think it was you. I think everyone was blindsided by what the heck.
Yeah,
Because it felt like Story of Seasons. Everyone knows that's Harvest Moon or whatever. It's established franchise, and you get a character, a different series crossover. Sure, that makes sense. But to get a sequel of that sort, that's weird.
I
That doesn't
know.
happen very often.
And clearly it was popular enough outside of Japan because
Yeah.
not only is it coming outside of Japan, but they announced it at the same time as they announced the Japanese game.
Yeah.
They haven't given us a release date, so it's possible it will come out in Japan before. Because that was wrong. I originally wrote that it's out now in Japan. It's not out now in Japan.
About to say.
So it's possible it might come out at the same time because they just said later this year.
Mm-hmm.
And considering it's not out in Japan yet, it sounds like they might come out roughly the same time, which is interesting. They don't normally, Studio Seasons don't normally do that. They normally have a few months at least between Japanese and Western releases. But yeah, so I am very excited about this. It's coming to Switch, PS5, and PC this year. I'm looking forward to this. I loved the first game, and I hope I will love the next game. So it looks like they have a new story where they kind of get transported to another new place.
Oh yeah.
And one of the interesting new features, we've not obviously been told a huge amount about what's coming to this game, but one is they've got a co-op feature in the game where
That's
you can have a second
cool.
player. You can have a second player control Doraemon and help on the farm.
Doraemon, my favorite Digimon.
So Doraemon is now a playable character in this game.
That's pretty fun though. I might pick it up, especially if it's co-op. I got a bro who enjoys farming games.
Did you play the first one?
I did not, no. Which is a shame. I know. I wanted to, but I don't know. Just never got around to it. But this one probably, maybe.
Speaking of new announced games, we've also got another new farming game announced from Square Enix, of all people, and that is called Harvestella. So this looks very much to me like basically Rune Factory.
Yeah, I mean, it's Square Enix, so what else were you gonna get?
Really funny though, if you watch the trailer, it's like all happy and kind of standard farming gamey, blah blah blah, and it goes, oh, you can progress through the seasons from spring to summer to fall to winter to the season of death, and you're like, whoa, what now? It's just like so sudden and like off the cuff that it's like talking about the season of death. So it looks like there's like a storyline bit where suddenly there's like this season of death where everything, all your crops die, and you have to go and progress the story to destroy the evil and then be able to grow things again or something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much Square Enix you play, Al, but
no, not very much.
It looks like very much, if for Square Enix fans, it looks like pretty much what you'd expect. From their storyline. Season of Death sounds about right. There's crystals and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know what else to. It's interesting though because Square Enix is much more action based and whatnot.
Well, that's why I think that's why it looks a lot like a Rune Factory game. It's not your kind of it's much more like your Rune Factory with your action fighting rather than just farming. Which like I get why some people like, but like as I've mentioned in the Rune Factory episodes, it's not really kind of like what I'm going to spend, hundreds of hours playing.
But then again, Square Enix was also responsible for Dragon Quest Builders 2, so maybe it'll be fantastic. I really
I mean, it does look really nice.
I will
agree.
It does look nice.
It looks really good. And I will probably buy it and probably play it. But yeah, it's coming on the 4th of November to Switch.
Remember the 4th of November.
Oh, that's the day before my son's birthday.
I didn't know his birthday's on the 5th. Very cool.
Yeah. So yeah,
Harvestella.
we have a third final new game announcement for this episode, and I'm sure there'll be plenty after we finish recording this. And
Yep.
that is called Wholesome Out and About, and I hate this name so much.
They have cottage
The
core in the trailer. They mention it by name.
Yes. So the kind of blurb, there's a couple of blurbs. So connect with nature in this cottagecore life sim about foraging, cooking, and crafting. Live in harmony with nature while learning real life plant and mushroom identification in Wholesome Out and About. And on Steam, it says, you've come to help your granny after a terrible storm destroyed her cottage and wreaked havoc in her idyllic coastal town. Can you find a way of restoring her home and untying and uniting the townsfolk? Connect with nature by foraging, gardening, and cooking. Then try out your new skills in the real world.
Oh, okay. The real life cooking and plant thing, that is an interesting angle to it, but everything else, oh man, that's all the check boxes on your standard cottage core.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like it's, it's. I mean, it's a farming game. What do you expect? You
Yeah,
can have pink hair. There you go. That's something.
yeah. It is, at least it's 3D, like looks, I don't know, full 360 control, but at least it looks a little more high, uh, a little different from your standard cottage core game, your standard 2D pixel type game. But I don't know. The trailer's very short. I need to see a little more. I forgot one thing. It has this. I don't know if this is going to be the standard or just an option, but it has the like first person control where your hands are invisible and your things just magically lift when you click on them. I don't know why that sort of control's kind of I'm on, but that's again a very me thing. But we'll
Yeah.
see. It looks like it. I forget. Do we get a release date? Probably not.
2023.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's still got a way to go, and I'm sure it'll clean up by then. Hopefully, right? Um, but we'll see. Good luck to them. Very. That's a rough name, though. That's very generic. I mean, not generic. Just it's easy to get lost, right? Like.
It's long and it is generic. It really is wholesome out and about. Like it's my word. Get a naming helper. Like I don't understand people. Like, if you can't name things, just admit that and go find someone who can. It's not a good name.
Yeah, it's
If you're gonna
something.
have if you're gonna have a name that is essentially like a name and a subtitle, the name has to be quick and easy to say and unique, right? Like take Alba, a wildlife adventure, right? It's not unique, Alba, but people generally know. Like you're not going to use that in conversation. Whereas you say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm trying out this new game," people will always say the first quick bit. So they're going to go, "Oh, I'm trying out this game, wholesome." Like, what? Wholesome what? Like it's just bad. Don't do it.
Yeah. Ho- Hopefully that improves. Like, well, hopefully the game isn't as generic and bland as the name.
Yeah, I'm not going to judge it on its name. I will judge
Yeah.
it on how it looks and plays.
No,
And
but
obviously, we don't know how it plays. So we'll see what
yeah.
happens.
Okay, but that's a game.
That is a game. And that's the news. So we're going to chat a bit about accessibility. And I'm going to introduce this by talking. We came across an article on Game Radar where it talks about a Stardew mod that adds a whole bunch of accessibility features in to the game for blind players, which I thought was really interesting. And
Yeah.
so I just wanted to talk about this a bit because I think accessibility is a really important thing. And, obviously it's important to mention that both of us are not blind. We don't have any physical disabilities that would require any additional equipment to play games. So we are obviously not the best people to talk about these things.
Nope.
So if you find anything interesting that we say, actually go investigate and find people who actually talk about this, who know what they're talking about.
Yes. And if you do know what you're talking about, please berate us and send emails to Al. Won't be
Yes,
get to them for a while, but
I am 100% serious when I say if you are blind or hard of seeing of some kind, obviously,
some
you
sort
don't
of
have to be
thing that could be
some
helped
issue,
by accessibility.
or you have any physical disabilities that mean you need like custom controllers or anything like that, please let me know. I am very open to having a conversation on the podcast with someone who
Yeah.
actually
To,
has firsthand experience of these things.
to pull back the curtain a little, Al did make an effort to actually find someone
I
who
mean,
would
not very
fill
much
that
of an effort
category. Well, you made an effort. You asked around for someone to join us, but we didn't happen to know anyone in our circle of friends and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
unfortunately, we
which is probably a bit of a failure on my part in the first place. But anyway, so that's the typical uh where what's the word I'm looking for? The pre warning.
preamble
We are we are not experts. We do not claim to be.
disclaimer.
I
That's
just want to talk about this and hopefully raise some more awareness of the fact that this is an issue and hopefully get some more people talking. I don't know, whatever. I want to. I think it's really easy to ignore these things,
yes.
um, and not to be aware of them if you aren't needing additional accessibility and if you don't know anyone that does.
Hmm.
And it's funny, I was actually talking to someone yesterday who is building a device to help blind musicians play in orchestras. Because, of course, one of the big things about orchestras is the only way to know that you're in time is a visual indicator and the conductor swinging their hands. So they're trying to build a device as part of their PhD to figure out how to allow blind musicians to join in with
That's pretty
sighted
cool.
players. Because either like they tend to do like either fully sighted and everyone can see the conductor, or fully blind and they do something with like metronome or something like that. But they obviously don't want a metronome to come too loud, and so they don't want to
Hmm.
kind of disadvantage anyone and allow them to play together rather than kind of segregated. But I just thought that
Right.
was interesting as well. Like it's really easy to kind of just not even think about these things. Like I hadn't even considered that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like of course you need something for people who can't see in an orchestra because literally the conductor is waving his hands around.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I have a lot of thoughts on accessibility and well, video games in general, right? Because this is obviously a big, widespread issue outside of video games as well, right? And I find that stuff fascinating for sure. And especially with like coronavirus and the pandemic and everyone's switching gears to working from home, that illustrated a lot of changes to be made to accessibility and whatnot.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people benefiting from it, and just some people just thinking about it, um, but when it comes to video games, right? Like, I find it fast because obviously more accessibility is always good, right? But like, I don't know. I find something. I- It's just the medium, I think, in itself makes it challenging, or at least
Yeah.
to from the get-go, right? Because, like, if you're making a building, right, coming up with an accessible entrance is you can make a ramp or something, and everyone can use that, right? But, like, you
Hmm.
know what I mean? But, like, video games, because the medium is based so heavily on the senses of, visual or audio, like it's a very interesting challenge, and
Yeah.
I haven't developed a game. I don't have those issues. I don't have to deal with those issues. But like, it's always a lot to see. Interesting to see how do they address that, and like, how do you tackle that as a developer from the get go? Like, how accessible do you make your
Yeah.
game?
So I'm obviously not a games developer, but I am a
Hmm.
software developer, so I do have to think about these things. I think there's kind of three main areas.
Okay.
I think I've only written two in the show notes, Apologies. Uh, the third one is just other. So there
Other.
we go. I've written it in the show notes now. There's three main areas, I think. The first one is the visual accessibility. So, when you're if you think about, so I mainly develop websites, and the dealing with visual accessibility is actually pretty simple with websites. So most people with visual disabilities of some kind will have a screen reader, which
Uh-huh.
will tell you what's on the screen. And you
Right.
just need to develop your website in such a way that screen readers do things.
Sure.
So you want to give it, proper tags to tell it like this is what it is. So if you see an image, it gives you a description of what the image is. By the way, if you're ever posting an image on Twitter, add alt text. That allows somebody who can't see to know what the image is, because
Oh,
their screen reader will read out the alt text and tell them what the image is.
it's a
And don't
purpose.
just say like image. Actually, if you need
Oh,
to the image to
oh,
understand the
that'd
tweet,
be
give the
awful.
information.
Oh, that's
Some
rough.
people legitimately do that sort of thing, and it
Oh
drives me insane.
no. Oof.
So that and also allowing it to be easily accessible by the keyboard, because generally, if you can't see, you don't want to have to deal with a mouse very much, because it's a very
Mm-hmm.
visual way of controlling things.
Right.
So making sure that when you press the tab button, it moves to the appropriate next element, and then the screen reader tells them what that is, and then they press tab and they go to the next one, etc., etc.
Right.
So that's kind of the main stuff in terms of developing. I personally do not know whether that is easy or standard to do in games. I do
Mm-hmm.
know that the mod and the article that inspired this episode does basically that. It integrates with screen readers
Mm-hmm.
and much more keyboard support
Mm-hmm.
to allow blind users to play Stardew Valley. So it's obviously possible, but I don't know whether it's kind of standard.
I mean,
So that's kind of the first area. The second area is obviously your kind of physical accessibility. And the biggest thing that game developers can do with this, believe it or not, is adding support for controllers. So if you, as a games developer, support kind of external controllers, like your what was it, Steam Pad? Was that the Valve one? Or
uh,
just like plugging in a PlayStation controller via USB. These are pretty easy to add in if you start at the beginning, and just support, every action that you would do on a keyboard. Also
mm,
add support for game controllers. Key point there: make it configurable.
mm,
Always make it configurable. That then allows people who have this massive wealth of different ways of dealing with controlling computers be able to just plug their stuff in and tie it into your game, and boom, they can do that. Um, Interestingly, have you ever seen the Microsoft Accessible controller, the
no,
Xbox thing?
I
So
don't
this
think
is was
so.
designed
I'm
for
looking
for
up.
Xboxes, but I think it works with PCs as well. And it has a whole bunch of different types of buttons that you can kind of put together in a controller that allows you to control it in many different ways. And people have used this for not only like, oh, I maybe, don't want to deal with such a small controller. I want a bigger one that I've only got a few fingers, or to
Yeah.
even things like I can control everything with my feet. And
Yeah.
it's actually incredible. You need to look up, I can't remember what it's
I'm
called.
looking at it. It's called the Xbox Adaptive Controller. Is that the one you're talking about?
Adaptive controller. That's what it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's
Looks like
absolutely
a
incredible.
Game and Watch.
Yeah, so the base configuration is pretty kind of basic, but I think they allow like a load of different accessories that you can
Yeah,
just plug
there are
in
a lot.
to it.
You can is that a there's a Wii nunchuck attached to this thing. What the heck?
They've I don't think it's technically Wii, but
Yeah, I
it's
know.
like
It's a
it's like a
Wii
Wii nunchuck.
nunchuck. Yeah.
And so
What
the
is
amazing things that people have done with this, you can support that in your game if you just support controllers.
Yes.
The key point being also support uh chain like configurable
Yeah,
buttons.
customizability, configurability, yeah, all that. Yeah.
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 And so that's kind of the second thing. And the third one I've just kind of put as other. And that's really funny things like, for example, uh, don't have something in the game that you only know by sound, because deaf people can't use that. So,
Yeah.
like, take, for example, fishing in Animal Crossing.
Uh-huh.
There are two different ways that you know whether there's a fish to hook in. You
Uh-huh.
see it or you can hear it. If you
Right.
only could hear it, well, first of all, obviously, if you were deaf, you would never be able to know when to hook in a fish.
Yeah.
But also, you couldn't play with the sound off.
Uh,
Simple things like that.
yeah.
Um, and the other kind of really big example is with uh, not making sure that something isn't only known by color. So
Yeah.
don't have a dot that is a different color depending on what things are and not have another way of knowing what that is. Because obviously, then people with color blindness cannot figure out
Yeah.
what's happening. It's not that you can't use color to help people figure these things out, but don't only do that. So if you've got like an icon that tells you whether something is ready or stopped and you want it to be green or red, don't just do a
Yeah.
dot, do a tick or a cross and then make it also the right color.
Yeah.
It's really simple things like that once you think about them, it makes so much
Yeah.
sense. But if you don't think about it and you don't have issues with color blindness and stuff like that, you just don't think about it. So that's kind of what the
That's
other category is,
yeah.
just kind of little things like that.
Yeah. That's all very interesting. Like you said, you're a software developer, so you probably have a lot more familiarity with this.
Mhm,
The visual stuff I can't really comment on because again, that probably sounds very
mhm.
complex. And
It's probably the most complex of these areas,
oh, for
especially in
sure.
games, because I don't think there's kind of a standard with
No.
web development. The only excuse of not doing it is I didn't care.
Yeah.
It's so easy to add it in, especially if you think about it at the beginning, and as soon as you know about it, you should be doing it. There's no excuse not to. Whereas I
Yeah.
think with games, I think it's more complex, especially if you're doing it on consoles.
Yes, yeah, that's the kicker, right? Like, can you?
Uh-huh.
Oh, how are you gonna do that with a Nintendo console? Like, oh my gosh, I can't
Well,
even imagine the nightmare.
Well, this is the
Um,
thing. Does the I does it, well? They could absolutely. I mean, I
okay,
suspect there
I,
is no built-in screen reader on Nintendo consoles, but they
yes,
absolutely could if they wanted to. Phones have them.
yes,
Your
yeah,
iPhone has a screen reader built in.
yeah, yeah. And like, oh, that, yeah, and like, I agree with you. Just trying to think, like, well, yeah, that's the thing, though, right? You need to build it from the ground up with that in mind. That's the challenge, right? And that's on Nintendo's fault, for not doing that.
There
But
is
yeah,
no screen reader on the Switch. I just double checked.
okay, well, there you go. But hopefully people can mod that in or something. I don't know. But anyways, but yeah, so I guess that's really up to the developers and the
Mhm.
manufacturers, the console people. They got to do that from the beginning. Nothing I think I can comment on that you already said.
I mean, that's all of this is though. That this isn't about we're not here to like solve the problem. I
I
want to
am
make
no, I'm
sure
not.
that I want to make sure that the conversation is happening, and I think that it's important to raise awareness of these things because people just aren't. So I've got another link to a tweet that's kind of in the other category, which is such a simple thing. So someone tweeted saying, during the Steam Next Fest, I played lots of demos with screen shake or other features which make it difficult or impossible to play with simulation sickness. And then they go on to say that the developer of Above Snakes listened to the feedback and immediately added an option to turn that off. That is kind of another example of like just small things that as soon as you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes so
Yeah.
much sense. And that as a feature is reasonably easy because all you have is, the screen shake is a feature and they can just disable that feature based on a setting. Now, it's not to say that settings are easy. I'm sorry, game developers. I'm not trying to tell you that everything is easy, but adding options like that is massive for these people. This allowed this game player to be able to play the game that they literally couldn't play before, and it was one tiny setting that disabled something that they
Yeah.
would otherwise have to implement
Right.
itself.
And
It's simple
you
things like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's two things I think that are important. The first, um like, it's important to note this benefits just everyone in general, I think, right? The bigger your
Absolutely.
options menu is, the better it is for everyone, right? Because it doesn't, yeah, I mean, yes, we're talking about accessibility, but like, there's just preferences too, right? Like, some people prefer to not have the rumble, or do have the rumble, or whatever.
Hmm.
And so that's always nice to see. The one of the most irritating things is when you open up an options menu on a game, and Nintendo can be pretty bad about this, and there's like 3 settings you can change.
Yeah,
Ugh, but yeah, but no, so it's always nice to see that, just because, like I said, I think this is one of those things where all boats rise with the ocean and whatnot. And
Yeah, I think it. Oh,
mhm.
sorry. No, yeah, you had.
No, just that, and to kind of to this example of above snakes, one of the cool things about the video game media is, especially in this day and age, it can be very iterative, right? The patches, updates, etc. You can add that stuff
Yeah,
in. So even if you don't always get at the get go, which is, I guess I can understand. It's tough. Development's tough, but it's nice to see people pay attention and add that stuff in.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm not trying. I would like to point out that I am not trying to say that every single person should be able to play every single game, because I understand that there are like some games that are so tied to something that it wouldn't make
Yeah,
any sense for it to be able to play. Like for
yeah.
example, um, it wouldn't make any sense for Guitar Hero not to be rhythm based. And if you had bad rhythm, I'm sorry, you're not going to be good at this game.
What?
But that doesn't mean that you should only have to play the game with the one controller that they provide. And if your hand doesn't work that way, then tough. Like, did you ever play like the kind of the original dance mat games on like the PlayStation and stuff like that?
I played the Mario one that came out on the GameCube.
The
But
really good thing about the dance mat was just a controller.
yeah,
The different buttons on the dance mat were just a
yeah,
standard controller. So you could plug
yeah.
in a standard PlayStation controller and play the dance mat on the controller. And
Or
obviously, like that's not something that most people would do other than just because it's fun to try once, right?
yes,
But the really good thing about that is that someone can then build a controller that works for people in a different way. So if you can't stand and you
yeah,
want to be able to do this without you moving your legs, you can do that in a different way with a different controller because it's using the standard that they had there.
yeah. No, that on this controller thing, like it honestly it boggles my mind that it's not a standard already on video games to
Mm,
already have just
yeah.
everything be open. And I think a lot of that is just corporate nonsense of like we don't want everyone to do yada yada. Um because I
Yeah, I
think it
think
makes
I
a lot
think
of
part of it
sense.
is. I think part of it is, and part of it is Indies just not thinking.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing about this is controller support is it's not easy. But I will say that if you start your game and every time you add support for a key on your keyboard, make it configurable, it becomes infinitely easier. Because you're not. The problem is when you develop your game and then you go back and want to add the configurability to every single check for every single key that you implemented. And realistically, you'll want to do this from the start anyway, because you're probably going to want to change some of what your defaults are. What you think are the keys that you want to control this game aren't going to be the keys you want to control this game by the end. And doing that right from the start will make your life so much easier. I cannot tell you the number of times that I've seen people go, "Oh, I now have to go through and redo this whole thing because I didn't make this configurable at the beginning."
Uh, yeah, no, the configurability and customization of controls seems like a really good idea in the games business. And like even from a
Yeah.
business perspective, like I think you could sell more junk that way, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive here. But dude, like this is kind of on the flip side of it, where this is for shenanigans, but there's people who've been at fighting game tournaments and junk who have won using Guitar Hero controllers.
I mean, okay,
Oh,
what official competitions want to set as their rules is completely different from what your game should support. You, I'm not saying that necessarily Pokemon should allow you to use your special custom controller that does something stupid, right? Like that's not
but that's what
necessarily how the world
Nintendo
works.
excels at. It's called the Pokemon Ball Plus.
Like, just I think it's important that anybody can play sports. That doesn't mean that we should make it so that Michael Phelps has to compete with me. you like that's not how this necessarily works.
Yes, no, I
Competitive is
know.
very different from
No, I
playing a
know.
game for fun.
I know.
And I know that's
I'm
not what
just
you were
saying.
saying. I know that's
Yeah.
I just needed to put that out there.
Oh man. Have other people is the Pokeball Plus compatible with other games?
I don't know, actually. I don't think so. I mean, there's probably something that you can do on PC with it because there
Well,
always is.
yes, because yeah, look, PC is the Wild West. Anything can happen. That's where the Stardew mod came from. It wasn't official, right? It was just a mod from someone else, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's only usable on PC because the mods aren't
yeah,
on console.
yeah. Let's see here.
That's another reason for consoles to support mods. Do it now. It's not all about stupid mods. It's also about accessibility.
The Pokeball Plus is only compatible with Pokemon games. I didn't know you could do it on
Sad.
Sword and Shield and
It it is
Let's
also
Go.
just a standard Bluetooth device though, so you can
Yeah,
probably connect it to your PC and use it as a
yeah,
controller in other
yeah.
games.
No, yeah,
Ones that have configurable controls
sure,
anyway.
sure. I'm just hoping for the day that somebody wins Smash Evo with the Pokemon Plus controller. One day. But anyways, back to the main thing though. But yeah, no, that like shenanigans like that are fun. But I mean, they're probably a unique case in the world where somebody might find the Pokeball Plus more comfortable. I don't know. I have big hands. I didn't like
Absolutely.
it, but I'm sure somebody else
Yeah.
would. Um,
Yeah.
and just
And that's the
yeah,
point. The point isn't can I see a use for this? The point is it possible that this could possibly help somebody? That's the point about
yeah.
accessibility. And yeah, you can't do everything all the time and you can't solve every problem for every person, but you can do some. And in the purely capitalist, selfish way of doing this, you can probably get more money if you do that because people will be able to buy your
Probably.
game, especially in the world that we live in right now, where
Yeah.
not every game does. People are looking. Like this tweet from this person who cannot play games with screen shake. They were so happy to have a game they could play. They will probably buy your game if you add that support in.
And that one's an easy one. That's just a little switch in your
That's
options menu.
that's literally disabling a thing. That's just an if statement saying if this is enabled, do this. Otherwise, don't do this.
Yeah, that's. I'm surprised. Like, okay, one more little tangent here. Like, uh, I wonder if eventually we're going to get video games as an industry is nonsense. So maybe not. But there's this thing called it's part of like the process to get certified. Gosh, can't remember the word, but it's where they go through testing the game and making sure certain check boxes.
QA.
Uh, yeah, I know it's QA. There's a specific word I'm looking for, but whatever. But the point is, there are certain things like and there's even little things that were cool to learn about, like loading screens, for instance. If you ever have a loading screen now, you are required that your loading screen, whatever icon or whatever, has to have movement now.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
Which
back in
is
the
it's such a simple thing when you know about it
yeah
because
yeah
otherwise is the game actually doing something or has
Yeah,
it
you don't
crashed?
know, right? That because back in the old days, like the 90s, sometimes the games were like that. They didn't have that because that wasn't
Yeah.
established. So it would be
Yeah.
interesting to see a little more, involvement
More
on that
standards
end.
around that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
standards. That's the word.
Yeah.
To yeah,
Yeah.
standardize some of this stuff. Can you toggle the music on and off and have your game affected, or
I
can you turn
I
off the
think
motion and whatnot?
yeah. I think
That
this
would
is
be
the big
interesting to see.
thing is that we need more standards. We need more things to just be what people do.
Yeah,
And that's not going to happen if we don't talk about it. And that's kind of
exactly.
why I wanted to talk about this
Right,
because it's
because
important.
the Nintendo executives listening to us right now are gonna remember this now.
I mean, it's not even like just about the big games because so many games now are indie games.
Yeah.
And I
No,
think that
yeah.
a lot of developers getting into it don't necessarily think about these things until
Yeah.
it becomes a real
Well
issue for them.
well,
And
I
I'm
bring
thinking about them.
yeah, well, okay. I bring up the big games because I think they set set the standards or the pace, whatever you want to call it, right?
True,
Like
true.
we talked about, right? Doing the blind, the visually impaired support on the Switch is it sounds like a
Yeah,
nightmare because the infrastructure isn't there on the
exactly.
hardware, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
and so that okay, so there's two, Nintendo on the one hand, they can build a better machine here, and they can also say, okay, if you want to put your game on the Switch, you got to meet the test. Can you play without music? Can you do it without the motion, etc.?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say they have to get on the store, but what would be really nice if they had those sort of features is like a quick thing on the game's page on
Or
eShop,
that.
which says this set meets our accessibility standards.
Yeah,
And
that would
then
be nice.
and
Little
that would
sticker
be
on it.
really good.
That would be good too. Too bad that
Yeah,
probably will never happen on Nintendo because boy, do they
I
suffer
know.
with their own games. Whew.
Well, the thing is, they could be so good because the Switch, like, it just supports USB, so you can plug in whatever controller you want, including a keyboard.
It's true. I
You
mean,
know, like they have support for these things. They just don't, like, they don't have a screen reader at all, and it would be basically impossible for any individual game developer to add that without the base level operating system support.
unless there's some out there.
Yeah, but bundling it
Toby
into
from
your game would.
Undertale, he could do it. He'll find a way.
Whereas Nintendo could absolutely do it. They could
Yeah,
package one in
yeah.
and add that support with not a huge amount of their budget. They just don't. Because either they've not thought about it or they don't care. And I suspect it's the latter.
Probably.
Because I cannot believe that nobody in Nintendo has mentioned, hey, maybe we should do this.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. But that's okay, because guess what? This is why Silk Song's taking so long. They are adding the screen reader function to the Switch. If only.
Dear. There's an upcoming episode of The Greenhouse where I make a fun prediction about Silk Song, and I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want you to wait. But it's funny knowing whether it came true or not.
It's not
It's
coming
coming
out
out in
now.
August sometime.
Oh, no, no. Okay,
No,
what year?
no. My episode is coming
Oh.
out. The episode is coming out in August sometime. I didn't predict that it comes out in August, or maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I'm not telling you either way
I
until
gotta
that episode
listen.
comes out. You'll have to listen
Are
in.
you predicting it's now 2 games?
I think we're done with this conversation. Is there anything else you want to add to this?
This podcast is accessible to most people.
Well, it's not really. Not really.
Is
I've
it?
not done the transcript in a long time.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
we
sorry.
haven't
I
done
really should
that.
look back into that.
Oops. Well, it's more accessible than a lot of Nintendo games.
Right. Well, I think that's everything then. Thanks, Kevin, for
Thanks,
joining
Al.
me for this discussion about accessibility in games. Listeners, thank you for listening. Again, I repeat, if you have input in this because you have first-hand experience of accessibility in games, and you want to come on this podcast to either tell me how I'm wrong or back me up and tell the game developers they should be doing this, email us from our website, harvestseason.club, which, now that I'm thinking this, I should probably make sure that's an accessible website.
Oh, this is why
Or
we talk
you can-
about them.
Yeah. Or you can tweet us at THSpod. Did I say the website name? Harvestseason.club.
Yes, you did.
That's the website. You can also find links to other things, including our Patreon. In our next episode of the Patreon exclusive podcast, we will be talking about Sonic.
Yes. Sonic the Hedgehog. Now there's... I don't even know how to tie that into accessibility. Look, I'm a fan and I don't know if it's accessible to me.
Kevin, where can people find you on the internet?
At Koopa Prez is my Twitter handle. I mostly retweet things. I have an art account that I haven't touched in a hot minute. I have a new phone. I haven't even linked my new account to it. It is
Shocking.
at Spriter Squared. I'll get to it. But yeah, that's me. That's all I got.
I think that's everything. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Kevin, again for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
And until next time, have a good harvest.
The Harvest Season is created by Rochelle Delaney and Al McKinley, with support from our pro farmer level patrons, Kevin and Stuart. Our art is done by Micah the Brave, and our music is done by Nick Burgess. Feel free to visit our website, harvestseason.club, for show notes and links to things we discussed in this episode. Thanks for listening.
Did you say it?
Yeah, have a good harvest. Okay, I forget. Like, I'm bad at timing it. There, okay? Have a good harvest.
It's literally in the show notes now. Come on, what's your
Is
excuse?
it? You have show notes? Have a good harvest, everyone.